I've been hesitating to shoot this video for a long time. Was I judgmental? Did I have enough experience to understand other people on this topic? And I didn't want anyone to, like this angry mob, to come to my house with the torches and the pitchforks. Yet universe sometimes creates this experiences that you experience both of the sides. And it gave me a different perspective. Well, my perspective didn't change, though it's helped me to go deeper into this feeling, understanding others much more, and maybe expanded my point of view on this topic. So I have a story to tell you. Every morning I walk in a park and I enjoy walking there. I got to know some people. I mean, some people, they just want to be by themselves. And some people are also like me. They are smiling. We note, we smile, we say hi. The security knows me pretty well at this point. And one day, I randomly said hi to someone who looked at me. And in my second pass, I make lapses. This person stopped me to ask something, and which is normal. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this. And then this person asked me for unreasonable things. Asked me if I was carrying a charger for the phone, like, power banks. If I knew this app and help him. It was something like a casino app. Casino app? Is it called a casino app? I don't know. And he asked me some other things, and then he said he wants to have a tea with me, but he was too pushy. Like he was trying to come closer. Then I said, I don't have time, which was true. I didn't have time. I had to go back home. I had things to settle, finish before at a certain time. And he asked, when am I gonna come the next day? All these questions. And I told him, look, I really can't have this conversation right now. And I prefer not to share this information with a random person. So please don't push me. Yet he kept pushing. And I saw a friend, someone who feeds the cats every day. He spends 3 hours feeding all the cats around this area. Did I say kids? Yeah. If I said kids, it's because cats are his kids. I saw him and I said it was strange, something like that happened. And then he went nuts. He was like, there are these people who just comes there to watch young children. They come to watch people meditating, doing yoga, this kind of thing. And I was like, do you think he's one of them? And he was like, yeah, he is. I mean, you're too naive. He is obviously not someone very healthy. And then I kept walking. And he was missing where he was before. Then suddenly he popped out of nowhere. He wanted to shake my hand. And I said, look, really, I don't want to have this conversation. I don't have time for you. And he was like, I'm coming to you with the greetings of the God. Are you rejecting that? It was strange. I mean, everything was strange. When I want to be friends with someone, I usually choose someone like around me, someone with similar interests, someone with similar mindset. It was always, we were too different from close to, I mean, he was chain smoking and I told him I don't smoke. Even this is a huge separation if you ask me. And it was scary. It was very scary because I don't know if he has something like a needle with him, if he has a spray that's gonna make me pass out. Then I don't know what he's gonna do. It was strange, scary, and it was a hard experience. Same week, a few days later, actually that day I fall asleep. I went to park very late, and I saw this person who feeds the cats again. He's there after 12, and I usually walk very early. And I stopped by to chat with him, and I told him I'm writing a book, and we talked about different topics. And there was this moment that I remember perfectly, that I could just end the conversation or continue staying with him. And I chose to spend a bit more time with him. And just after that, a girl came there. She was holding a phone, started taking cat pictures, and she was like holding it like this, like she wants to check something, like she's trying to understand something, like maybe using a map. And I asked her if she needs help with something. It was a foreigner. And she said no. She said she just wants to take pictures of cats. And she used to live in Istanbul. Now she's passing by. She just came back from Bali, etc. And okay, I mean, if she doesn't need my help, I just went back to talking with my friend. And then she was just standing there. So I looked at her and I said, do you need something else? And she was like, yeah, do you know any good coffee shops around here? And I told her, I mean, there are these ones. And like a few moments passed. It took me a while to understand what's going on. And I understood that she's actually asking me out. And I said, okay, let's go. I'll show you them. And we started walking. We went to different places. She liked taking pictures. I showed her around. And we exchanged numbers. We met a few times. And she went back to her country. So it was hard for us to communicate all the time. But still, I enjoyed the little moment we shared together. So the universe sent me very similar to experiences with different tones, with different vibrations. Like one was very tense, another was so sweet and nice. And I'm glad I experienced this, both of this, in such a short time. I'm sharing all of this because there is a woman I see almost every other day. And she always wears black. She has a black hat, she has black glasses, and she also has a black hoodie. So she covers her face. And I mean, you get curious when you see someone like that. But then you notice this behavior of her. I was running and she was doing something, I don't know. And when I was passing, she just stood there like this, waited for me to pass. And I'm like, why did she stop? Why is she waiting for me to pass? Did I do something? Is it my breath? You ask these questions because it doesn't click with you, because you're not like that. And every time I saw her, it was the same thing. She was like, don't look at me. Don't look at me. I don't want to have anything with you guys. And even I had no intention of caring about her. I was just minding my own business because she was keep doing this. I was like, oh, like somebody's pushing you and you're looking back. Why are you pushing me? And this person is pushing you saying, don't look at me. I mean, I had no intention of looking at you. Now I'm looking at you because you're doing this. And it was strange. And I don't understand. I mean, it comes from something, maybe a trauma, maybe a belief system, anything can be possible. And when I was in the park, I saw this woman. So she also has glasses and a hat, no hoodie though. though she wears purple. And it was revealing because I realized I've been seeing her, but I wasn't seeing her. She was there, but she was also invisible. I mean, same clothes, almost the same thing, but two different energies, because one of them is like a water, subtle energy. She just flows. The other one is fiery. She's like, don't look at me, I told you. You're like, oh, what's going on? Why are you treating me like this? And you were keep looking, you're noticing her. It was like, poof, mind blowing. So I meditated on that. Like, did I do something? Am I the cause? What might be the reason for that? Yeah, I like understanding people. Okay, I'll be very honest. Men can be rude. Men can be crude, blunt. And I know not every man is kind. And I understand this behavior to a degree. Like, when you have too many bad examples, you think the rest can be the same and you want to push it back. But the problem is when you start to create this selective environment, you might start to miss out the reality. So the truth is, I mean, it's hard to really generalize people like this, good and bad. But there are good people and there are bad. There will be people that are going to respect you, and there are people that are not going to respect you. And the thing is, the ones that are going to respect you will respect this boundary and not come close to you and talk with you at all. Yet the ones who doesn't care about it, the ones you want to avoid, will come to you. So when you want to eliminate these people and try to push them, you actually put yourself in a selection pool. I mean, it's not really a selection pool, but in this pool that the only men that approach you are the I'm not sure if YouTube allows me to say that. Hopefully it does. That are the bad people, bad guys, bad men. And then you have more of this experience and you think more men are evil, so all of them are evil, and you're in the stupid loop. What I mean is, if there are 10 men outside, 8 of them are good, 2 of them are bad. These 2 are gonna come to you and you're gonna have 100% bad experience. And if you allow this 10 men to approach you, or if you allow also this other 8 men, good, kind men that you might enjoy spending time or share some moment, anything, if you allow them, then the amount of bad experience will become 1 out of 5. Does it make sense to you? I know I shared this before, and this is crucial to understand. I had my own fair share of bad experiences. I broke both my hands and my girlfriend left me just after the surgery. She was already cheating on me. I had so many things, bullshit. I don't even want to talk about them. Yet, after that, you always have a choice. You can say, this is one person, one bad experience. Or you can say, every woman are evil. You can understand this is something had to happen so you can grow up. I'll say it again, this is an experience. Or you can just blame others. You can ask why I'm always attracting this type of people, and then look inside and choose to grow up. Or you can say every man or woman are evil, which is not true. There are goods, there are bads, there are all kind of colors, every spectrum of colors. And there are even colors we can't really pursue. And usually what you focus on is what you see. So maybe, ladies, change your environment, change who you are, change your approach, allow some other people to come to you.